Welcome everyone to this space where we dive deep into ideas and challenge conventional narratives. Emmanuel Todd's notion that Europe is essentially a US colony certainly gives us a lot to chew over.
Absolutely. And it's not just a catchy phrase, right? It's loaded with layers about political crises in France and the broader moral decline in the West.
Yep, exactly. Todd, in his discussion around the defeat of the West, draws a vivid picture of how Europe's policies and identities have been shaped by American influence. It's like he's saying the West's internal moral fabric is in decline, and the external political subordination is a symptom.
Right. And isn't it intriguing how he connects the crumbling political structures in, say, France with this subservience to American ideals?
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of shocking too. Take his critique of the political crisis in France. He suggests that the lack of strong national policy frameworks renders the continent vulnerable to external, notably US influences.
Yeah, that's a bold claim. I do wonder, though, what exactly are the mechanisms through which this subordination manifests? I mean, is it cultural, economic, or purely political in his view?
Good question. Well, Todd argues, and it's like he points out that it's a mix, but primarily it's political and cultural. For instance, the way Europe aligns itself with US foreign policies often comes at the cost of its own historical identity.
Exactly. And that leads us to the moral collapse point he touches on, doesn't it? The idea that in the process of adopting these external influences, Europe dilutes its own societal values.
Exactly right. Todd seems to be saying that when you subordinate your values for convenience or under external pressure, you lose the very essence that defines a society.
Yep, that's a powerful observation.
And what's really fascinating is how he links the current political instability in France to this larger picture. France, with its rich history of revolutionary change, now appears caught in a kind of cultural and political limbo due to external pressures.
Absolutely. It almost sounds as if Europe's vulnerability is like a canary in the coal mine, signaling the erosion of traditional values and independence.
Precisely. And it's like he suggests that there's this gradual but systematic undermining. And here's an interesting twist. Todd also hints at a moral dimension that goes beyond just geopolitics.
That's intriguing. Can you expand on that a bit? How does he tie morality into this narrative of subordination?
Sure thing. Todd appears to stress that the West's moral collapse is reflected in its policy decisions. You know, compromising ethical standards in the name of strategic alliances. This isn't just a political imposition, it's a cultural shift that redefines who and what the West is.
Definitely a thought-provoking perspective.
And there are layers. He connects these events to historical turning points. By drawing parallels with past European crises, he gives us a lens to see that these are not random occurrences. There's a historical precedent for how moral and political failures lead to such subjugation.
I appreciate that historical context because it challenges the idea that current events are isolated. But don't you think his framing might lean a bit too deterministic? I mean, is it fair to say, like, all of Europe is just a subordinate, passive entity?
That's a fair question. Good point. While Todd's rhetoric can come off as rather stark, he's trying to highlight systemic issues rather than imply that every European or every policy is subservient. It's more of a critique of overarching trends.
Exactly right. So, what do you make of his statement about the US colony aspect then? Is it a metaphor for cultural hegemony, or is it more literal in a political sense?
It's it's a blend of metaphor and reality. Todd uses colony to evoke the image of dependency and loss of sovereignty. It's not about an actual colonial operation, but rather the subtle, pervasive influence the US maintains over European politics and economics. Think of it like a host-parasite relationship, not overt colonization, but a gradual takeover where decisions that should be made independently are in effect guided by American interests.
That's an interesting analogy, a sort of conceptual parasitism. But don't you think that oversimplifies the complex ties between Europe and the US?
I see where you're coming from, but Todd actually digs deep into those nuances. While his language is provocative, he underpins it with historical analysis. Look at how he draws on events from past centuries to frame modern policy choices.
Agreed. right? And he also discusses a sort of cultural inertia, doesn't he? Where historical identity isn't just lost, but actively exploited to justify contemporary political arrangements.
Exactly, and it's like he argues that cultural narratives help create this acceptance of subordination.
Absolutely.
For example, the narrative of a shared Western value system is reinterpreted in a way that justifies this dependency rather than celebrating independent European identity.
That's really telling. It's as if the very framework that once united Europe is being repurposed to, well, undermine that unity.
Indeed. And he even goes on to reveal a surprise secret at the end of his discussion about his book, The Defeat of the West. This, I think, adds an extra layer of intrigue, as it suggests there's more beneath the surface of his analysis than what's immediately evident.
Definitely adds to the mystique. Now, this secret revelation, what do you think it implies about the future trajectory of Europe and the West?
Well, it's like a call to reconsider the narratives we've been fed for decades. Todd hints at a need for a more authentic re-examination of power and morality. Essentially, he's urging Europeans to reclaim their agency and maybe resist this hyper-dependence.
Right, that certainly would shake things up. And isn't that reflective of a broader global trend? Where populist movements are challenging existing power structures in many parts of the world?
Absolutely. It's very much part of a global pattern. The contestation of elite power, whether in Europe, the US, or elsewhere, reveals widespread disillusionment with the
That's
status
spot
quo.
on.
Todd's argument in many ways echoes that sentiment. His perspective is both a warning and a call to introspection about where our democratic values are heading.
Yet, I have to say, the idea of labeling an entire continent as a colony seems a bit sweeping. Isn't there a risk of oversimplifying the complex interplay of global politics?
That's a valid critique, and one that Todd himself might acknowledge. The use of such potent language is, in part, designed to provoke debate. It pushes us to question deeply entrenched assumptions, even if it risks generalization.
I get that.
And it forces us to ask, at what point do historical continuities and modern dependencies converge? Is it a deliberate strategy or a byproduct of evolving global dynamics?
Exactly. The interplay of culture, politics, and history in Todd's thesis creates a rich tapestry to explore. Yet, it also demands that we remain critical, always questioning whether there might be alternative interpretations to this so-called US colony framework.
Right, because no single narrative can capture the full complexity of European identity and its relationship with the US. It's an invitation to debate more than to dictate conclusions.
That's true. And what's really compelling is how Todd's perspective intersects with the current media landscape. The way these ideas are being disseminated, for instance on channels like the Burning Archive, signals an appetite for radical reinterpretations of history.
Totally. Platforms like that let voices like Todd's reach a wide audience, challenging conventional wisdom. It's sort of like a awakening, calling on people to re-examine inherited narratives.
Yep, exactly.
And as we wrap up, it's crucial to leave listeners with something to ponder. How do we balance historical identity with modern alliances while safeguarding our moral values? Todd's analysis might not have all the answers, but it sure ignites the conversation.
Absolutely, and it's a conversation worth having.